the OCGFAM show. Alkalinity. It's a hot topic with the Nectar fam. Let's talk about it. Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCG. Welcome to the OCGFAM show to you, my YouTube buddies. What's going on? Let me know in the comments and we'll talk about it. And in the comments, we've been talking a lot about alkalinity. It's a hot topic among the Nectar fam. So in the last viewer questions episode, and there is a new one coming up soon, we're working on it. Scott's been real busy, but we're going to get there. But in the last one, we talked quite a bit about alkalinity and then just kind of a update, state of the nation kind of situation with it. And it was a good clip. It's only about 6 minutes long, but it's got a lot of information packed into it. I thought you might find it interesting, so I broke it out of that, showing it to you here. So watch the clip. I'll talk to you after. What's going on with alkalinity?
Well, you know, I mean, there's so much. We still have a whole nother show to do.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, those questions keep piling up. And, you know, there's everything from, you know, how do I add alkalinity if my water pH is 8, or can I just, you know, buy a Boogie Brew? What's the Boogie Brew? Have you seen this Boogie Brew?
I've never seen it, but I think they've got some sort of squirter on your hose that puts calcite into it or something.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I tried to look it up real quick. Didn't get anything from a search. So
where are those guys around here? Are they from?
In California.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And they have like all Boogie Brew compost tea pods and stuff. So, I mean, they're just like, you know, I've heard good things. It's nothing wrong with the compost tea brew. But a lot of these alkalinity questions that are coming through are ones that are, you know, we don't have the perfect solutions for. I mean, there's no one-size-fits-all shoe here for everyone. I mean, everything depends on your water pH that you're starting with. You know, if your alkalinity is 15, your pH is 8.6, and you want a calcite charger, that's not going to be your answer, because you need to get your pH of your water down. The very 1, 2, 3 step of all of this is your water has to be between 6.5 and 6.2. You have to run it over calcite at a slow rate of speed. You know, let's say 5 gallons an hour, 10 gallons an hour, something slow, so it's moving through it. It will build your alkalinity up to anywhere from 100 to 140 parts per million, depending on the acidity of the water and the flow rate. If you have 7 and higher pH, calcite isn't going to work for you as far as just passing it over. You still have to get your water down to be more acidic to make the calcite available.
Is that why I'm working on the water instead of just working on the soil?
Well, if the whole thing with that is, there's 30 ways we can fix this thing.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to be different. So like right now with Pig, his water has, what do you say, 400 parts per million of CO2 in the water. So it's creating its own carbonic acid. So when he passes over his calcite, he's getting 120 parts per million after going through 2 cartridges.
But if you didn't have that.
Well, so then even with that, with his aggressive feeding, with his aggressive CO2, more CO2, which is what CO2 in his water is creating carbonic acid. That CO2 in the environment is still breaking down the calcite in the soil. So even with all that, we're seeing him going from 6.4 to 6.3 to 6.2 in week 4 and 5 of flowering.
Still.
So now we're adding in calcite or calcium carbonate into his potting mix. That is the backup. So as the water is still stripping it down at 6.4 in the solution, it's still pulling that calcite out of the soil, still keeping his pH balanced.
It's a more efficient process in the water than it is in the soil because of the CO2, and is that the issue with everyone with the CO2, or?
Not everybody, because if you still have super hot alkaline water because your pH of your water is 8.5 out of the tap, there's a lot of alkalinity built into that. So your CO2 in the room is going to make that alkalinity more available, and so you're going to thrive. If you're starting at 5.9 water and you have CO2 and you haven't built it up into your soil, you're doomed, because it's going to keep driving your pH lower.
Okay.
So, you know, we've had anything, if you're a smaller guy, that carbonated water trick is kicking butt for so many people. You know, starting with anywhere from starting at like a 9 pH water, adding your food, and then pH adjusting. So you're adding a ton of carbonate. You're adding all the more acidic products of our line, which is reacting to the carbonate, converting it to a bicarbonate, increasing alkalinity, then pH adjusting at the very end again. So there's one method. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The other method is mix all your food, jack your pH up to 8, use carbonated water to bring it back to 6.4, because that's carbonic acid, which is super gentle, not it's not stable.
Uh-huh.
I mean, so it's not something that's going to hold a long time, but as long as you get it into that range of 6.4 and then get it into the soil, then that reaction's done. They eat it, they absorb it, and then your your alkalinity is built up. But by building up to 8, so mix your food, jack your pH up to 8.0 with Olympus, that's all calcium carbonate limestone.
Yeah.
Add carbonated water, whether it's a soda stream or Perrier water,
Club
drop it
soda.
to 6.4.
I mean, it kind of
Yeah, but we're finding some different carbonated waters have different strengths of carbonation. So the more carbonated you get, the faster and harder it brings it down. The less carbonated, you have to add a lot of it.
Oh.
So, but basically go from 8 to like 6.4.
Okay.
That way you've taken that 6.4 to 8.0 pH of limestone and you converted it into alkalinity by taking a carbonate into a bicarbonate through that carbonic acid reaction. So that's a cheap way of doing it. So mix your food, go to 8, drop it with soda water to 6.4. You will have a high ppm of alkalinity.
So.
Or you start with your water, that's 8. Then you put it through a CO2, reef charger basically, but what do they call it? CO2 reactor that you use for an aquarium setup.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And that just takes water and that CO2 goes through it just like a carbonating water. It converts the excess into carbonic acid. Then you run that over your calcite, and that gets you what pig has, 120 parts per million of alkalinity through his calcite chargers.
Okay, helpful, informative? Answer some questions? Bring on more questions? If you got questions, put them in the comments. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. The OCG Fam Show. It's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCG Fam Show. See you tomorrow.